Okay, welcome everyone. My name is Idilia Organjalar and I am the president of International Business Association of Humber College. We are so glad to have you here with us in our third of the International Business Association Industry Leaders Series. I would like to introduce you to Kamaldeep Kaur, who will be our host of the webinar today. Thank you again for attending. And also we have our guest speaker, Zeynep Aydin. She will be doing her presentation very soon. So I would like to give it to Kamaldeep now.
Thank you for the introduction, Adele, and welcome everyone. Thank you for joining our today's webinar. I'm your host, Kamaldeep, and I'm a third-year international business student and also the VP of Digital Marketing of IBA. Again, thank you for joining us today and in joining our webinar. As the IBA, we appreciate your time and attention. Today, we are presenting market research and strategy and international angle with Zeynep Aydin. Just a few housekeeping rules before we get started. If you have any questions during the presentation, type it in the chat, in the question box, in the chat box, or you can raise your hands. And I just want to remind you that this webinar is being recorded and we'll be sharing it on our social media platforms after. You will have a chance to ask questions to Zeenab at the Q&A session. And today's agenda is we'll start with the quick introduction of IBA, followed by Zeynep's introduction and what she does, followed by her presentation, and then we'll move into the Q&A section. So next slide, please. We are International Business Association of Humber College, and our association includes it consists of 8 students from a variety of semesters. Our members work within their departments, which include project management, digital marketing, and communications department. The International Business Association is destination for all the international business students who want to enrich their student life experience. We aim to link the Humber students to connect to the business world while also providing them with the useful tools to ensure the real world success. Now, with the great pleasure, I would like to introduce our guest speaker, who is going to talk about the market research and strategy as international business student. This is the subject that some of us will be using less and some of us will be using more in their career. And our speaker has spent most of her career building brands and providing strategic directions to blue chip clients, which include P&G and Unilever in some of them. And she has also won the SMR Congress Excellence Award on the United Nations Development. And I would like to introduce the fun fact about Zeenab, that she loves animals, and she has 3 turquoise when she was a kid. So please join me in welcoming Zeynep Aydin. Over to you, Zeenab.
Thank you, Kamaldeep. Okay, so I believe you have my deck introduced into your slides. Yes. So hello again, I'm Zeynep. Glad to be back at Humber College, where I've spent a full year studying research analysis a few years back. And glad that you guys are studying business and might be interested in marketing, because that's really a passion of mine. I too have studied business and I have majored in marketing. And when graduating from business, it felt absurd to do more of the same type of studies. So I opted myself out of an MBA. I was impatient to experience the real world. So it was the 90s and I had the belief that work should be fun. And so I picked 3 industries: fashion, tourism, and advertising. And my first job was in the fashion industry, but thankfully it did not last long due to a severe personality clash with my then supervisor. So I left and started applying to ad agencies in the city where I lived at the time, which was Istanbul. There was no Indeed.com. In fact, there was no emails at the time. So I found the location of a few ad agencies and I started leaving my resume with the receptionist. That's how I landed my first job in marketing. The reason I call this a marketing job is because, in fact, advertising is just a subset of the marketing ecosystem. The way it is currently conceptualized, the marketing ecosystem is comprised of owned, earned, and paid media. So I'm sure you must have heard about this, but to summarize it very roughly, owned media is things like your store, your website, your packaging. Paid media is advertising in the more classical sense, where you pay money for exposure and you carefully curate your content or your ad. Earned media is what we used to call PR or public relations. You don't have the total control here that you would have in paid media or advertising. You feed some information to independent media channels and hope for the best. But what you lack in control, you gain in credibility. Overall, earned media is more believable than paid media. For every touch point covered by paid, owned, and earned media, there are agencies out there who specialize in creating content and sending it out to the world. There are creative agencies, say like Wunderman Thompson. This legend key you see on the page calls them full service agencies. You could also call them creative agencies. There are media planning and buying agencies who place your creative assets in the media channels where your target audience can see them. An example would be Starcom Canada. There are PR agencies like Hill and Knowlton. What you need to know is that these agencies are in fact part of big holding companies. If you are part of any marketing services agency, odds are that they will be part of one of the global holdcos, such as WPP, Publicis, Omnicom, Interpublic, Dentsu, or Havas. To have a more detailed understanding of the scene, you can Google Agency Family Tree 2019. This is an annually updated map of Canadian agencies published by Strategy magazine. So, back in my 20s, I started as an account executive at one of the best agencies around, J. Walter Thompson, which doesn't exist anymore. It has been merged with Wunderman, and now it's called Wunderman Thompson. Account executives were the people interfacing with the client and had to look very sharp at all times, hence their nickname of suits. This function also traditionally was the fastest track to management roles. The other major function in the agency were creatives. Creatives would be typically present themselves as couples of CWs, copywriters, tag teaming with ADs or art directors. As their names suggest, the copywriter was responsible of crafting beautiful headlines and copies. So, verbiage, and the art director would design the advertising layout. So if we were doing some print ads to be inserted into newspaper, or whether that was packaging, logos, billboards, that was the role of the art director to design those. There was this constant tension between the account team and the creative team. Creatives wanted to win creative awards, while account people wanted to keep their clients happy, such as myself. And somehow these two objectives were always exact opposites. I believe the same tension is still felt in ad agencies today. Creatives always want to take risks, disrupt, and provoke, while clients, who can be brand managers, marketing managers, or marcom managers, would rather play things safe. The example shown here is an ad for Kentucky Fried Chicken. It is also an excellent example of crisis management, which falls under this discipline of PR. Back in 2018, this ad had the "We're sorry" as its headline. It was inserted as a full-page ad in major newspapers in the UK when KFC was forced to close more than half of its restaurants in the country due to a shortage in chicken supply. What makes this a good example of creative-led advertising is the usage of the F word. Being provocative is one of the creative's favorite strategies. Creativity, as a rule, wants to break out of the mold, be different, and get noticed. It's what gives a brand its cut-through power to get noticed in the media clutter. Here's another noteworthy creative execution I saw in Toronto before the pandemic hit. What's disruptive about it is that it avoids being perfect and chooses to be more realistic instead. I'm not sure if you can all see the phone with the cracked screen. This is unconventional for an ad because we're used to seeing a perfect world in advertising where everyone is young and beautiful and nothing is broken. Anyone know whose ad this was? Anyone? I see no hands. It was an ad for Wealthsimple. This ad stands out from the crowd. So in fact, creativity is also what makes the ad effective. Creativity and effectiveness go hand in hand. The best advertisers or clients are those who understand this and help their agencies take calculated risks. That's where strategy comes into the picture. That's a third important function in an ad agency. Strategists are the people who will listen to the client's business and marketing objectives and turn those into a creative brief. The creative brief is an internal document that is designed to inspire and steer the creative teams to create the most effective advertising ideas and executions. This is another creative execution seen in Toronto that I really liked. I'm not sure, maybe some of you have seen it as well if you've been commuting on the subway. Back in the good old days when we were riding the subway to downtown Toronto to go to our jobs. This ad was inside the train. The campaign comprised several executions, and my favorites were the ones with the charades. I'm sure you can appreciate how that would be entertaining to someone riding in a jam-packed train. This is an example of the power of context and how creative can adapt to the medium in which it lives. I have already mentioned the third discipline within creative agencies called strategy. In fact, believe it or not, strategists also have to be creative. Let's think about the case of the diaper wars between Pampers and Huggies. Pampers was the market leader when Huggies invented pull-ups. In the early days of Huggies, Pampers had the strategy of delivering gift boxes to new moms. In fact, research found that new moms of infants, were the most insecure of all and would stick to the most famous brand. And that brand was Pampers. However, Huggies capitalized on this knowledge. They looked at what preoccupied moms of kids around a year old. Just as they were getting more confident as moms, they found that these moms were really anxious to see their kids take their first steps. They invented pull-ups, a product that was positioned not on leakage prevention, but on freedom of movement. The rest was history. Now, this is a really creative challenger strategy. And a lot of people had a hand in this, and I'm sure this was based on a lot of very insightful research, as well as strategists. The next concept I would like to talk about is branding. Anybody know what brand's ad this was? I'm sure many of you must be thinking Canadian Tire. And this is an illustration of how branding is done. It is not by making the logo larger, which would make the brand look cheap. It is by carefully weaving recognizable elements consistently into your creative executions, which brings us to marketing research. The main reason that the lesson of branding is forever etched in my mind is because my clients used to do brand and ad tracking studies. In these studies, I saw that 10 to 15% of a brand's advertising budget can benefit the competition. So they spend money in the media placement of their ads, and as a result, 10 to 15% of that is recalled and in fact creates more mind share for their competitors' brand, because consumers will see the ad but will attribute it incorrectly to another brand. I'm sure you will appreciate how bad that looks for a brand manager. And the only surefire way to prevent incorrect attribution is by having strong branding in your ads. Yet you would not believe how many of the greatest advertisers and agencies totally miss this one. Here's another fantastic example of strong branding. So looking at this, I know that a lot of you are actually, you already know what the brand is, although there is no logo to be seen on this page.
Oh yes, I got an answer. It's TELUS.
Yes, yes, thank you. It's TELUS. So
thank you, Jordan.
Thank you, Jordan. So I'm sure a lot of you were also thinking TELUS. So the ads with strong branding render the logo obsolete. So the branding is so strong, so well built that you don't even need the logo after a certain point. From a quick glance at the ad or hearing the brand's musical theme or other audio signature, consumers already know that the ad comes from TELUS. If it wasn't for tracking studies, so marketing research, the importance of branding would never have been known so well, which brings us to research. Marketing research is the unique source of truth behind all of this. Unless you measure something, you can never formulate best practices. A discipline can never grow unless it has some measure of its success. I want to share another real-life story at this point. This is a personal experience from my days in advertising. My agency's performance was being measured by a pre-testing technique called ORS. If ORS scores of our creative work were above a certain threshold, the client, who in this case happened to be Procter & Gamble, would reward us by paying higher commission rates the following year. However, something was wrong. Procter & Gamble, if you could go back one slide, yes. Procter & Gamble, who traditionally had a portfolio of brands geared towards women, had acquired the company Gillette. And our Gillette ads were not performing well in the ORS test. As the CEO of the agency, what it took me to uncover the mystery was a visit in person during ORS fieldwork. The respondents who were watching razor and shaving foam ads were all women. Thus, we were able to discover the failing in research design. ORS was not designed to measure effectiveness for a male personal care brand. My natural curiosity has led me to new places each time in my career. That's how I ended up in research back in 2010. As a strategist who had tried her hand in brand management, I wanted to conquer the next frontier. So I started moderating groups at a research agency. That's how I learned more about research. In fact, I had a lot of interest in quantitative as well as qualitative research. So focus groups are qualitative research. I started getting my quantitative credentials like a CMRP designation and a postgraduate certificate in research from Humber College. Now I am part of research strategy group where I'm involved in a lot of leading edge research techniques, whether that's qualitative, quantitative, foresight, user experience or UX research, behavioral science, segmentation, ethnographies, discrete choice, and so on. I learn new things every day and I really enjoy my life at Research Strategy Group. In between my advertising roles and my research career, I have also undertaken a few marketing roles on what we used to call the client side. What I can tell you about the marketing roles is that they are probably more stable and lead to more career advancement. Overall, they are a wise choice, but the vendor side has the advantage of exposing you to a broader range of industries. It is so intellectually rewarding to transfer your learning from one industry to another that you may get stuck on the vendor side forever, like I also did. What I will say about the client side is that if you want to learn, go to multinationals. If you want to see your personal impact more clearly and gain appreciation for it, I would recommend large Canadian companies where you will have a higher chance of being part of important decisions. In some multinationals, you may forever be condemned to do transcreations instead of creating anything new. That means adapting work that was created elsewhere and most likely in the States. During my adventures on the client side, I have been in very interesting roles like category manager and international marketing director. I have noticed how language can create efficiencies, especially in Eastern Europe, in Eastern European countries and the Middle East, where many countries speak Arabic and Russian. But you have to watch cultural differences at all times, such as religion. In Afghanistan, we had to do shampoo billboards where not a strand of hair was visible because the model had to wear a hijab. So as student of international business, I'm sure a lot of this type of nuance awaits you in your career. It is fascinating to be exposed to different people, cultures, and languages. Another occupation that I would highly recommend is to have a side gig of teaching once you get your career going. If you are offered a lecturer role, any teaching role, even as a guest lecturer, definitely take it. Teaching will nurture your career. It will bolster your confidence in your subject matter. Also, I would recommend that you take on roles in industrial associations whenever you can. I know it can seem like grunt work, but the people you will meet and the work you will be involved in will make it very worthwhile for your career. Who knows, maybe some of you could also land in MarTech jobs. This is one of the latest MarTech maps I was able to find online. It is a story of fragmentation and consolidation in perpetuity. At this point in time, it looks like we are at the peak of proliferation of companies. And in a few years' time, I can predict that this map will probably look less cluttered after a series of mergers and acquisitions. Also, remember that consulting firms have their eye on the advertising industry's lunch, so much so that before the pandemic, they had started making appearances at the Cannes Festival, where annually the most creative ads from agencies around the world are recognized. Nevertheless, I doubt that anyone could get a marketing consulting job fresh out of school. This is probably a second or third job for you guys. Wherever you choose to start and continue your marketing career, always make sure that you are extremely fluent in marketing. The tools you add to your marketing arsenal through training, education, and reading will always serve you and make you a high performer in your role. I'm sure a lot of you recognize this one. It's Maslow's hierarchy of needs. This will help you identify your single-minded proposition or your brand positioning. The second one is the product lifecycle, another very important concept and tool for marketers. Your marketing strategy will depend on where your industry or technology stands on this cycle. This third one is the BCG Matrix. Again, this is an extremely useful approach when managing multiple products, brands, business units, or maybe even international markets. Make sure you familiarize yourself with the latest advances in the social sciences as well. The one illustrated here is the concept of Triune Brain. If curious, Google it. You will see that it has fascinating implications for marketers. And finally, I have two book recommendations. One from Daniel Kahneman. It will help you understand how consumers think and make decisions. The one on the left called Thinking Fast and Slow. Whereas the one on the right is really important for you if you are ever taking a job in the media industry, planning for media planning or buying roles. This concludes what I wanted to share with you. Mostly it was my own personal experiences from a 27-year long marketing career. I hope this was fun and happy to answer if there's any questions.
Thank you so much, Zeenab. It was really interesting. And I think we can all agree that marketing is a very creative and innovative field. You have to be able to think out of the box if you want to make a name for yourself and keep moving your company ahead, right? So we'll go ahead and take any questions if you have. And Just a reminder, just please make sure to write your answers in the question box and I'll ask Zeenab. And while our attendees are getting their head around for the questions, I would like to ask you a few warm-up questions. So the first one is, after 25 years in providing strategic directions to your clients, what would be your, say, the most fulfilling moment in your career?
So I would say it is a repeating experience for me, and that is you know, how you want to stay sharp in your craft. So you are a practitioner of research, let's say, and then the major dilemma you will have in your career is that as you are promoted and go up in the you know, you get promoted and become a manager of people, then you feel like you start to lose your edge. So what was most fulfilling for me throughout my career was to be able to slightly change the direction and reorient my career. So I was back doing more hands-on parts of my job, and I was able to feel like I knew what was going on the ground level and not just seeing things from above. So that's always been like the reinvention of yourself and going into a slightly different, so I was always in marketing, but every time I went, let's say I started in advertising as an account person, as an account executive, then I became a strategic planner, then I was in some client side roles, have been a brand manager, have been an international marketing director. So those all had some learning curves for me, for sure. So being able to learn new things is the most fulfilling part of my career, if you ask me.
So are your clients are from a specific industry, or you handle from various different industries?
Well, for me, there's been, I mean, I have worked on projects in almost every possible category throughout my career. But what I love the most and have the most expertise in is definitely what we call FMCG in Europe, you know, fast moving consumer goods, but are called CPG here, consumer packaged goods. So food, personal care that are sold in grocery stores, where you know you have the freedom to, you know, launch a product, see whether it's successful, or because these types of industries, they launch several innovations annually, and then it's a kind of you know, survival of the fittest. The products that are successful will survive. The ones that are not will be delisted. So as a you know, brand manager, you get to see your ideas in action. You get to see which of your ideas were in fact good ideas, which ones can survive and which ones don't. So it's the fastness of it that is really fulfilling and educational, I think, for a marketer.
Okay, so I have another question. So what is the biggest challenge in your career?
So biggest challenge, again, I would say, is that, I mean, it's a problem, I guess, from an HR standpoint. Two things. First of all, if you are successful in any role, you get promoted and you become responsible for a team. Like, you have to manage a team, and people management is also very time consuming. So if you're a researcher, you do less research and you have to make time for people management. If you're, let's say, a strategist, you do less strategy. So that is a dilemma whereby you get promoted, but you can do less of the job that you actually love. And another one is that nowadays companies and, you know, employers are really expecting of professionals that they specialize in just one subject. And if you're a very curious person, you may want to be involved in several different techniques. Let's say if you're part of a research agency, generally, more traditionally, research agencies are divided into qualitative and quantitative people. So what I was able to do, and that I enjoy a lot at Research Strategy Group, is that I'm allowed to be part of both types of research, which is a very rare thing to find in the industry. So, you know, getting promoted is a challenge, because, you know, people management starts to take more and more of your time. And the other challenge is the expectation of employers that you have a very narrow focus. Whereas, you know, as you grow in your career, again, you want to be involved in a variety of approaches.
Okay, there is a comment from our program coordinator. Thank you, Mr. Pierre, for joining us. And he's saying that the Thinking Fast and Slow, it's a really good book. It gives every participant a money-back guarantee. It's a rich and stimulating book drawing on behavioral economics and psychology. So he's suggesting we should definitely read one. And I recommend to everybody, including myself, that after the webinar, we buy the book and we read it. So we have another question. That okay, so you mentioned teams, so they are asking, do the teams always work with the contracted client, or they are assigned different clients throughout the years?
So generally we have group account directors who are responsible of, let's say, 2, 3, or 4 clients. Each account executive who reports to them can be responsible for either 1 or 2 client. But of course, you will not be stuck with one client over several years. I mean, after 1 or 2 years, you know, during performance evaluation talks with your manager, you will be asked whether you're interested in moving to another team, and you will have the chance to work on other clients as well. And also, I mean, there's also project-based work. So if you are an agency of record or an AOR, that means that a certain, you know, proportion of the client's business or advertising budget is spent with you as an agency. But there's also project-based work. There's all kinds of different types of business models in the advertising industry. Sometimes advertising agencies will have a dedicated unit within their company that has a separate name and is totally dedicated to one client. So an exclusive one client agency within an agency. So there's that's of course only worthwhile if the client has a very large budget. But there's all kinds of different structures in the industry currently. There's even some in-house agencies that advertisers have started within, I mean, within their own walls.
So the next question is, have you encountered a situation where your market research was not affected, or is there any backlash that your firm has encountered?
Well, you know, market research is not really measured by effectiveness. So market research is generally measured by how much it answers the questions that were initially asked by the client who's sponsoring the research study. So what we make sure we ask clients is we definitely make a very concerted effort to, you know, get our clients to articulate what it is, you know, very precisely that they want to find out by, you know, commissioning research. So if we have like 4 or 5 or more research questions in the beginning, then by the end, the measure of success is whether we answer those questions well, and whether the client feels the answers are actionable, whether our answers can be turned into recommendations and specific actions. That's what the measure of success would be in research.
Okay, and any provoking marketing campaigns that faced a backlash? In our course, we have seen a lot of companies that received a backlash, and we had made presentations. But in your company, have your company experienced anything like that?
Well, yes, I remember that a Pepsi campaign with one of the Kardashians where one of the Kardashian women was starring, was found to be very frivolous because it was using, you know, riots and manifestations as its background, and people have felt that it was taking those you know, manifestations or riots too lightly, and that it was making light of the political weight of those events. So that Pepsi, like Pepsi and Coke, are known as marketing maestros, and you know, really very. I mean, they're always shown as, you know, examples of best practice and benchmarks for every other company out there. But in this case, Pepsi really faced some, was under fire for that particular execution.
So what was done to correct it? Like, did they send an apology, or did they took their ad away or made a new one? What was the solution?
I'm not aware of what was done after that campaign. All I know is that it was definitely had some negative, some adverse reactions among consumers.
Okay, so the next question is, when working in a diverse countries like Canada, you must have confronted by many challenges. Can you give us some examples and solutions?
Okay, can you repeat that, please? In a what?
While working in diverse countries, like in Canada is a very diverse country. There are so many cultures and peoples here. So have you confronted any challenges, and how do you overcome those challenges?
Mm-hmm. Yes, I mean, for sure, in Canada, there's of course ethnic agencies out there. Like there's some you know, advertising agencies who actually specialize in multicultural advertising, even research agencies who specialize in multicultural research. So that is actually that has its own industry, like its own ecosystem of multicultural marketing is definitely available in Canada. In terms of challenges, I think that, I mean, traditionally, Quebec in Canada is used to be a larger chunk of the market, and I feel like it's getting smaller over time. And there's always this tension that, you know, it is not represented sufficiently in research samples. So that would be one of the challenges connected with multiculturalism or diversity in Canada, being able to represent French-speaking consumers and Quebec. Also keeping in mind that a lot of marketers are not based in Quebec, they are based in parts of English Canada, or maybe they don't themselves speak French. So that is always a point of tension in research, I find.
So, in related to the diverse culture, there is a question that in Turkey, what are the techniques that are not used in Canada as compared to Turkey?
Well, I would say not just Turkey, but in the whole of Europe, when making, you know, when doing research, when writing creative briefs, you would always think about socioeconomic groups. For example, you would say, you know, this product is, you know, appeals to A socioeconomic group, A plus. You know, we have B, C1, C2. These are very important parts of the everyday marketing language that we use, whether that's in Turkey or whether that's in the UK. There's always a question of socioeconomic groups or status of the consumer. And ever since I have come to Canada, and it's been more than 10 years, I have never heard these definitions to be used in either research or marketing you know, environments.
Why would you think that they're not using the socioeconomic? Because we haven't learned in our course as well. So what do you think could be the reason? And it maybe it's time to add it in the Canadian culture.
I feel like, I'm not sure, but because I have not seen it used, and I have not I have not tried using them. I have not suggested using them. I feel like that is part of the culture where it is not politically correct to, you know, classify people by their income or maybe by their education. It's a kind of, you know, it's a kind of being blind to people's backgrounds and looking at them, you know, more from a standpoint of whether they will use the product, whether they will be interested in the brand, but not whether they're educated enough or, you know, wealthy enough to afford the product. So I have felt like this is a cultural way of being more politically correct in marketing. And, you know, similarly, I can mention that if you look at research, you know, survey questionnaires coming from the States, I often see that, you know, ethnic background is like a very detailed list of ethnic background codes is always included in questionnaires, whereas in Canada, we would only include that if it's absolutely necessary. We would not make that a standard part of quantitative questionnaires.
So it's mostly because of the diverse culture and political reasons they chose not to do it, right?
I think it's a it's a matter of business culture.
Okay. So next question, they're asking if anybody want to become an international marketing, would you suggest domestic or working on an international level?
I would suggest working on the international, you know, multinationals first, because you will learn a lot there. You will see a lot of different examples, you know, different approaches to how brand strategy or marketing strategy can be used. And therefore, you are likely to learn more. So if you spend a few years at a multinational, I also think that you will not have a hard time finding jobs at Canadian companies. So, you know, once you learn enough that you get to feel, you know, more confident, you can move on to a Canadian company. And at a Canadian company, you will feel that you know, you will see your impact better. You will be able to you know, implement your ideas more than you would be at a multinational, and that will probably bring you some career fulfillment later in your career.
Yeah, I want to add, as international business students, it would be really amazing to start at international level and put our concepts and learnings into actual business-like scenarios and see what's the difference in the practical and what we learned, right? So let's continue with another question. It's that, what was the workaround to advertising shampoo in Afghanistan?
So the models we have used in billboards in Afghanistan had to wear a hijab.
Okay.
So their hair was covered. So the packaging was shown on the billboard. You could see a shampoo packaging. There was a headline, but we could not show hair.
Okay. Were there any male models in Afghanistan?
No, not for this shampoo, because its target audience were females.
Okay. Okay, I have a few more questions. Does the company have to do all the all the options for the marketing, like the paid media, owned, and the earned media, or they choose few options, one option?
They almost all companies have to do all three. Those are really essential functions within marketing. There's always PR. There's always, you know, paid advertising, let's say not always, but most of the time. And earned media is actually their own stores or their own websites. So it's impossible to have a company without any of those. So definitely, I would say 99% of companies, especially those who are, you know, business to consumer companies, would have all three types of touch points going.
So that means a lot of advertising budget for all the companies, right?
Yes, well, you know, that's a whole other subject, you know, what you can do with smaller budgets, what you can do with larger budgets. But definitely you will see at multinationals that, you know, they can have more than one target audience because they can afford to have more than one campaign. But if you are a smaller company, you would probably have to choose just one target audience, and you know, you will design a campaign that will appeal to that target audience.
Another question, how do the new companies build their brand loyalty?
How do new companies build brand loyalty? Well, if you, for example, one of the 2 book recommendations that were on my last page, the second one was called How Brands Are Built by Byron Sharp. So in that book, you will you understand that, I mean, traditionally, marketers believe that you try to keep your existing customer, and that's the cheapest thing to do. That's the lowest hanging fruit. If you try to gain new customers, that is an expensive you know, undertaking, and you will avoid that, and you will try to you know, make your existing customers loyal, or you will make an effort to turn them into advocates of your brand. But according to Byron Sharp, that is not that should not be your primary focus. Instead, you should focus on gaining new customers, or getting light users of your product to use it more heavily. Is more you know, makes more sense for
Yeah, because
marketers.
if you stay with the only existing customers, then your market is not expanding and you're not getting more revenue, right? So it makes more sense to have different options to bring in new customers as well, right? So the next
Exactly.
the next question is, what is the most memorable marketing campaign that you have worked on? Was it challenging? Was it good or bad?
Most memorable. Well, you know, back in Turkey, I worked on a dairy brand called Sutash. No one would know it here, but the whole campaign was based on a very memorable, you know, figure, which was the cow. So they had a certain type of cow, you know, with black spots on a white background. That was the hero of all their ads. So over several years, we created campaigns based on this cow, and we got a lot of creativity and effectiveness awards. And we were able to create campaigns that were very strongly branded and were very effective, and grew that company by many fold. So that was one of the most important projects that I worked on. So again, that was a local company. So I knew very clearly that my impact was important. I was an important part of that campaign. But that can most of the time can be achieved by being part of local companies, even if that's, you know, you're doing some international business because that Canadian company has exports or has presence in other countries. If the headquarters are in Canada and you're part of the headquarters of that company, then you will have more decision-making power, and you will more clearly feel that you've had an impact.
Thank you. So for the earned media, so they're asking, your loyalty doesn't cost you anything, but it's derived from branding efforts. I'm not sure I understand that.
That's that. Earned media. Your loyalty does not cost you anything, but it is derived from your branding efforts. No. So earned media. Earned media is public relations. So in this day and age, earned media is also activities on social media. So you don't pay to put a display ad online, but instead what you do is you have some social media activities that are naturally, so organically followed by consumers. So that's when you're not really paying for it. You're just managing a social media account, but you still get eyeballs, you still get visibility, but you're not paying directly for it. That is earned media. But paid media is when you see a display ad online, and that ad has been paid for. Okay. So that's the difference between paid media and earned media.
Okay. So another question, dairy advertisements are very different here compared to what you explained about Sutash. Because of the cultural difference, right? And the different market people over here.
I'm not sure that that campaign might also work here. I see no obstacle to that, because cows are a universal symbol of dairy. So why wouldn't it work here? It would work. I guess it would work anywhere, because people everywhere. I mean, maybe except in countries where cows are culturally taboo or anything like that. I see no reason for it not to work here as well.
Okay, yeah, I mean, there is no difference. The cows are cows, right? So it's going to be the same everywhere. So Abel will ask you one more question, and then we'll go from there.
Okay, that was amazing. Thank you. I feel like I've learned so much more from you than I could just like go online and look up, because you're giving us the experience that you've gained over the years. So thank you so much for all those answers. I really appreciate it. But I just wanted to ask you, you explained how you started your career going to agencies and handing your resume to the receptionist. What advice would you give to us students, mostly in our third year? We're trying to apply for internships. Some of us have them, but some of us are still looking for them. What advice would you give us that, could differentiate us from others?
Well, as I was talking about challenges in building your career, I mentioned that employers are really looking for, professionals and, talent to specialize very narrowly in a certain field. So for us, for those of us like me who have been part of the marketing industry for a long time, we know all the nuances within each industry. For example, let's say in research, a qualitative moderator is very different from a person who knows very advanced statistical techniques and can do things like segmentations and discrete choice. So if a student comes to us and says, I want to do research, but I have no idea what type of research, that shows that they have not researched research. So that shows that they have not really looked in detail into what it entails. So it doesn't look serious to us. But if you tell us a little bit about what you've read, what parts of research interest you more, then if you show us that you are more interested in a certain area of research, then definitely that strikes a chord, and we would be more willing to give you information and to help you find a job, because it shows genuine interest, and it shows that you've put in the work before you came to us. So if I'm the first source of information for you on research, that's wrong. You first should go online. You should read a few books. And I'm not saying you should study it for 10 years, but at least you should give it a few months to just, soak it in, learn a bit more. And then after that, when you form a point of view, when you feel a leaning towards a certain area of research, then you can go to actual people in the industry and researchers and ask them your questions, or tell them, what parts of research you're interested in. The human contact points should not be your first place to look for information. They should come towards the end, so that maybe they even will become your colleagues one day.
Definitely, I understand that with the crazy job market right now, everybody looking for jobs, it's important to differentiate yourself. So maybe when you understand that, okay, this is an industry that I'd like to be a part of, going and doing a little bit of research instead of being, professional in it. Like, you can't just, out of college, you can't just be amazing at something. You have to get some experience in the world. So learning about it a little bit, Googling, watching videos, webinars, definitely is the key thing, I guess, for us to show employers that there's a little bit of something in us that we can provide them, and we can help them in things. So I understand what you're trying to say. Definitely. I understand that. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Pierre Pascal wrote a comment. Yeah.
So Mr. Pierre is saying that you're suggesting students will have to be very good at something before they graduate, rather than be superficial generalist. So what will you say about that?
There's nothing wrong with being a generalist, and I mean, most of us are. Even I am quite a generalist because I've been, I've been part of marketing teams, research teams, creative teams, all sorts of different industries under the definition of marketing. But what matters is if you go to for example, if you go to a research professional, a research practitioner, you ask them questions or you ask them for like an internship or a job. What matters is that they have to see in you a genuine interest. And if you don't know anything about the subject, it shows you've never read about it, and then you've never been curious enough to watch a few videos or just even browse through a book. That shows that you are not very serious in your interest, and maybe you're just just trying your luck to see if there is anything. But I mean, so many people are trying their luck that only those who are genuinely interested are have a higher chance, which I think is fair.
Definitely.
So we'll conclude that, sorry, Adele, if you want to go ahead. So we'll conclude this, that we have to make sure that which industry we are going into, make sure you know the job and what you are getting into to show the interviewer that you're interested and you know about the role you are getting into, right? So with that, thank you so much. And thank you, Ms. Zeenab. It was a really informative webinar. We all enjoyed it. And with this, we are reached at the end of our webinar. We really appreciate you for being here. And for our participants, thank you so much for being here and giving us your time. And don't forget to fill out the feedback survey that will be on your Zoom landing page on your browser, and tell us how we can improve for the next time. And if you want to learn anything more, you can connect with Zeenab on the LinkedIn and see how is their company doing and what options can you get. And if you want to join, you can join maybe after a couple of years. You can apply there. And thank you so much. So with this, we will end. Thank you, everyone. Thank you so much.
Thank you. The pleasure was all mine.
Thank you so much for attending again, and we hope to see you again in the future in next year's Industry Professionals webinar. That would be amazing to hear what you've done over the summer, and thank you so much for attending again. And for our attendees, thank you for taking the time during your finals and your presentations. We hope you have a great evening and hope to see you in the next one.
Yep. Bye.
Bye, everyone.